Come, brave adventurers, we're off on a quest to find the... Well, it really could be anything now, couldn't it? Hey everyone, Jake here from Monsters and Munchkins, and today we're going to be talking about what I think is probably one of the most important plot devices to understand as a dungeon master, and that is the Macguffin. Now, I can't quite remember exactly, and I don't, to be completely honest, care enough to look it up, but I do believe it was Alfred Hitchcock who used the term Macguffin, and the general idea was it was a person, place, or thing to incite action in your story. Macguffins are common throughout all of pop culture. We have the damsel in distress. We have the one true ring in Lord of the Rings. We have the Death Star's plan in Star Wars. Could be anything. In Dungeons & Dragons, we have a number of our own very famous and very used, by myself included, Macguffins. We have the Axe of the Dwarvish Lords. We have the Rod of the Seven Parts. We have the Eye and Hand of Vecna, as seen on Critical Role's first season. All of these things are great magic items, or, well, they're magic items in the case of the things I just listed, but they could be anything that will make your players want to go off and do their quest. Almost every single one of these quests that we see that are classic adventures include a Macguffin. I personally love Macguffins because it is a great way to get players to do things, particularly if that Macguffin is a magic item, because players love magic items. They will do anything for magic items, even particularly lame magic items. Give magic items to your bad guys if you wish for them to befriend your PCs, then just have them hand them out to the PCs like candy. Never trust the man just giving you a random ring. It's never good. Use of Macguffins in this game has been quite popular for almost as long as the game has existed. In earlier editions of the game, such as the OSR stuff, it was much more common to go on a quest to find a +2 sword than it was to find a +2 sword on a quest. The idea of adventuring to find treasure is as old as fantasy itself. In Tolkien's The Hobbit, what did they go off to do? Bilbo Baggins went off from the Shire with his new band of dwarf and a wizard companion to go slay Smaug to take his gold, because gold is a great motivating kind of Macguffin. It's not really a Macguffin, but you get the idea of what I'm going at here with this whole concept. So why is this of value to dungeon masters? Well, like I said earlier, it's a great way to motivate your player characters. Using Macguffins is tricky though. You can't just throw something at them. Not all PCs will just go after the magic rod because you say that the magic rod is important. Some people will need an inciting incident to get them to go after said Macguffin. So Macguffins are best when attached to a larger story overall. My personal two examples. World was going to be destroyed by demons, needed Rod of the Seven Parts. Dwarves were sad and torn apart. One of my player characters was a dwarf. Wanted to build the Axe of the Dwarvish Lords to make them feel better. These are the ways my PCs, kind of actually on their own, use Macguffins to go off on quests and do cool things. So now that we kind of understand what Macguffins are and their use and the way I personally use them, why don't we dive into actually making a Macguffin for the purposes of this video. Tashas Cauldron of Everything just came out, and we're mostly focusing on magic item Macguffins for this video, so let's go and take a look at the magic item settings, because I think if we're going to make a Macguffin, starting off with some new stuff, maybe not stuff from the DM's guide, because maybe your PCs have seen that in another campaign, maybe they've already gone on the quest to get the Holy Avenger, or they've already destroyed the Book of Vile Darkness, and they're looking for something new. I've only had a cursory look, actually, through the magic items in this book, so we're going to be diving in together and picking one for the first time. So there's some really cool ones in here that are just dripping with ideas right off the bat. The first one that jumps out to my attention is the Demonomicron. The Demonomicron of Igwilv, an expansive treatise documenting the abyss's infinite layers and inhabitants. The Demonomicon of Igwilv is the most thorough and blasphemous tome of demonology in the multiverse. The tome recounts both the oldest and the most current profanities of the abyss and demons. Demons have attempted to censor the text, and while sections have been ripped from the book's spine, the general chapters remain, ever revealing demonic secrets, and the book holds even more blasphemous secrets caves behind. So what do we need to know about this thing? Basically, there's a whole bunch of things here which we're not going to worry about right off the bat. There's a whole bunch of information, blah, 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 destroying the Demonomicron. Okay, great. So we don't need to know any of that stuff. We have a magic item. Let's say we're going to make an adventure based around the Demonomicron. The other stuff is just fluff that we don't really need to know. It's actually crunch, but it's crunch that we don't need to know. It says, right off the bat, something that sparks adventure-making ideas in Jake's brain. Demons have attempted to censor the text, and while sections have been ripped from the book's spine, the general chapters remain, ever revealing demonic secrets. Maybe, in her ever-knowing awesomeness, Tasha has lost or misplaced the Demonomicron. Maybe it's landed in the library of some lonely town out in the middle of nowhere, and oh boy, you can bet that demons are going to want to rip a hole in reality to go and get that thing. Ideally, this is your players' towns. Your players could be living off in this town in the middle of nowhere. They don't know what's going on. A librarian, a cleric, the town's clergyman finds this book somewhere, brings it in, doesn't maybe even know what it is. Maybe you're Demon Omicron. Here's something, we're going off topic here. We're going on tangents because we've not planned out this video, and this is what we do when we don't plan out videos. And honestly, I think it makes them just a little bit better. I think all magic items in every single world should be different. The Rod of the Seven Parts that I used should be different than the Rod of the Seven Parts that you used, which is why I'm not going to tell you what my Rod of the Seven Parts did. My Eye and Hand of Vecna should be different than Matt Mercer's Eye and Hand of Vecna. My Axe of the Dwarf Sword should be different than yours. You get the idea here. Magic items should feel unique. I like this idea, kind of, that we're all playing in the same D&D multiverse, and if I went from my D&D world to your D&D world, my Eye and Hand of Vecna would be similar to your Eye and Hand of Vecna's and similar to Matt's Eye of Hand of Vecna. Eye and Hand of Vecna. Why is English so hard? But they would ultimately be different because my portent of D&D reality that my players and myself have carved out for myself is different than yours and different than Matt's, and so on and so forth. So maybe your Demon Omicron, or in this case my Demon Omicron, doesn't reveal itself unless the person knows what they're looking for. So your cleric could have thought, or your librarian, or maybe your university with children. That's always a good motivator for PCs unless they're warlocks. Children don't know what this is. Now, demons are coming. Maybe at first they just send a few demons, but your PCs manage to fend those off easily. Your PCs then look around town. Why are these demons showing up here? What are they looking for that is in this middle of nowhere Styx town that they want? So they look around and they find the Demon Omicron. And now your PCs are off on a quest to destroy it, which leads to an entire adventure in and of itself. That's just one example. Let's just go through this book and pick out another one and find another way to use a nice little Tasha Macguffin. A similar theme to the last magic item that we just took a look at. Let's take a look at the Crick of Rao. Now, the Crick of Rao is very similar to the Demon Omicron, and honestly, putting the two of those in the same adventure would probably be quite a good way to tie a lot of different plot threads together. The Crick of Rao. Ages ago, the Stream God Rao created a tool to shield his fledgling faithful against the evils of the lower planes. Because eons past, mortals developed their own methods of dealing with existential threats, and the Crick was largely forgotten. In recent ages, though, the Crick of Rao was rediscovered and leveraged against the rising power of the Witch Queen Igvilv, one of the many names of the wizard Tasha. Though she was defeated, Igvilv managed to damage the Crick during the battle, infecting it with an insidious curse and the potential for future victory. In the aftermath, the Crick was again lost. Occasionally it reappears, but the famed artifact is not what it was. Whether or not the artifact's bearers realize its full threats and the few risk using the Crick of Rao, because I'm not going to dive into it in this book because I don't think it's particularly important for making an adventure. There is a backfire and curse on it that actually makes you summon demons instead of destroying them with the Crick of Rao. So, you can use the Demon Omicron and the Crick of Rao in the same adventure, but actually tying plot threads together. That's what I did with both the Axe of the Dwarf Swords and the Rod of the Seven Parts. They were tied together in the same story, and the plot threads overtwined to actually just create this epic spanning adventure where my players were off looking for magic items. And here's the thing. You might think, well, this is boring. You just told me, Jake, that this has been done so many times everywhere in every type of culture. Why are my players going to be interested in doing this too? First of all, your players are just probably happy to be playing Dungeons & Dragons. Second of all, everybody loves magic items. That's why a good chunk of this book is magic items. That's why like half of the DM's guide is magic items. People love the people that they are close to. The damsel in distress will still work just as well as it has for all these years because your PCs will probably want to go save her. And your hometown that they hold near and dear to their heart, they will go adventure for it. Maybe they're looking for the lost city of Atlantis because power, treasure, walking across gigantic plains for hours with no end in sight, these are all classic adventure things, and I can guarantee, if these are well executed, your players will be excited to do them. Sorry, mini rant over. As I said, this video is not scripted, it is late at night, and I'm about to go play some video games, but let's just do one more magic item before we call it done. So, you guys might not be able to use this one in your campaign, at least not the way I'm going to describe it here, because I'm going to use it in my campaign, and magic items should be different. But the Teeth of Daffodil, Teeth of Daffodil, The Teeth of Daffodil are stories given form. They are a collection of teeth, each suggestive of wildly different origins and made from various materials. The collection rests within a leather pouch stitched with images of heroes and whimsical creatures. Where the teeth fall, they bring legends to life. Using the teeth, while you are holding the pouch, you can use an action to draw one tooth. Roll on the Teeth of Daffodil table to determine which tooth you draw. You can either sew or implant it. If you don't sew or implant the tooth, roll a die at the end of your turn. On an even number, the tooth vanishes and the creature appears as if you sewed the tooth, but they are hostile to you and your allies. On an odd number, the tooth replaces one of your teeth as if you implanted it, potentially replacing another implanted tooth. See below. Each tooth can only be used once. Track which teeth have been used. If a tooth result is rolled after it's been used, you draw the next lowest unused tooth on the table. Sewing teeth, then there's just some rules. Implanting teeth, destroying the teeth. Okay. So here's an interesting idea. If you're in a world like the one I'm currently working on for a Homebrew campaign, where there are certain races that are dying off, the Teeth of Daffodil, however the hell, I don't believe in pronouncing things correctly. However that is pronounced, are an interesting adventure because they present these memories. They're living stories that were passed down by word, probably, in the olden days of your world. They're now sewed into the power of these teeth. Because of the way they are, people will want them. Maybe throughout time, legend has it, maybe this Daffodil, whoever he was, wasn't such a great guy. And he sewed ancient magic into his teeth that could be great or evil, and somebody wants to plant the teeth to summon whatever this is, and somebody else maybe is attached to the idea of the teeth, because the teeth also have the potential to bring back their dying race, their dying culture. But at the same time, they have to let it go, which also gives us, we're not in the video about adventure design, but it gives us our moral conundrum for the adventure. But they have to let it go because it also has great danger. That is an example of a great Macguffin. It has a motivating factor. Your PCs are running out of time. They need to destroy these teeth before the world ends. However, somebody is very attached to them, and the chance to bring back a dying race is also going to be lost with destroying them. And finally, it gives you tons of adventure opportunities because you have your generic stormtrooper zombie type bad guys who your PCs can kill without remorse, and you have an impactful, very cool, very motivating, probably very, very fun adventure for your PCs to go off on, which is why we use Macguffins. We use Macguffins to make these epic quests, which I can guarantee are almost always going to be fun and exciting. I hope you found some things in this video useful. I know we mostly talked about magic items. We can talk about different types of Macguffins in a different video, but I thought that was pretty useful because magic items are, let's be honest, most people's favorite thing about Dungeons & Dragons. I know they're certainly one of my favorite things. You can check out our live streams on Twitch from 6 to 9 p.m. every Friday for Dungeons & Dragons and 7 to 10 p.m. every Wednesday for Call of Cthulhu. In addition, we're putting out content twice a week for role-playing games and board games on this channel. You can follow the links in the description down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It's the only way to get this out there if you guys share it with the community, because we are a small channel and I just do these videos because I love games. Till I see you again, don't forget to have fun and roll some dice.